There are two great recent statements on Clarence Thomas in these two articles. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. This is where the Happy Patriots are, because I love me some Clarence Thomas, and I know so do you. He's my favorite Supreme Court justice, and he's in the news.
You can be in the middle of a hurricane, or you can be on a calm day. North is still north. You could be in a thunderstorm. North is still north.
First is over here at Newsweek on what Clarence Thomas has once said about same-sex marriage. What Clarence Thomas has said about same-sex marriage ruling. This is from Newsweek. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has repeatedly expressed an interest in revisiting the court's decision that established the right to same-sex marriage. He knows that thing was wrongly founded and needs to be reversed. Why it matters, the Supreme Court's 2015 ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges, decided by a narrow 5-4 vote, just one off, said same-sex couples have the right to marry under the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. Now, they may find another reason why same-sex couples can get married. It was absolutely wrongly decided based on the Equal Protection Clause and the Due Process Clause. Certainly on the equal protection one is equal things deserve equal protection. They never proved in a court of law that a man and a man is equal and interchangeable with a man and a woman in marriage, at the very least for the potential of having kids. It's very easy to prove that they're not equal, they're not the same by government standards. But President Trump's three appointees cemented a 6-3 conservative majority on the court. The court in 2022 overturned Roe v. Wade, the ruling that had established a constitutional right to an abortion. By the way, they found that right, which again, they may find that right somewhere else, but they found it in a right to privacy, which is not there. It does not extend to abortion, I should say, raising fears that other rights could be in jeopardy. That's true for all these cases. The legal case has to be rock sure, and if it's not rock sure, it will get reversed. If you try and pull some law that doesn't apply and then apply it to something and bend it out of order, which is what they largely did, they may go find another law to try to justify it. And those need to get overturned if they're not what the law was talking about. Last month, Idaho lawmakers called on the court to undo Obergefell. That's Idaho lawmakers, are people in Idaho. I have an art show coming up in Moscow, Idaho. It opens, it's going to have a soft opening later this month, so I'll tell you guys about that too. A move that would once again allow states to ban same-sex marriage. What Clarence Thomas has said on Obergefell. Thomas, the court's most conservative judge, wrote in a dissenting opinion in the Obergefell that the majority opinion stretched the doctrine of substantive due process rights found in the 14th Amendment so too far.
People can yell at you. North is still north. It doesn't change fundamental things. And in this business, right is still right, even if you stand by yourself.
Quote, in its haste to reach a desired result, he said, the majority misapplies a clause focused on due process to afford substantial rights, disregards the most plausible understanding of the liberty protected by that clause, and distorts the principles of which this nation was founded. Its decision will have inestimable consequences for our Constitution and our society. See what I mean? They broke the due process. It ends up weakening other parts of your country, as I hit my microphone. He added that, quote, aside from undermining the political process that protect our liberty, the majority decision threatens the religious liberty our nation has long sought to protect. So then they end up mowing all over our First Amendment rights and our right to hold our own creed by making it, or by basically the government's like establishing its own religion, which there's the anti-establishment clause. In a concurring opinion to the court's decision during overturning Roe, Thomas called on the court to review other precedents, including what he called the, quote, demonstrably erroneous, unquote, rulings protecting same-sex marriage, gay sex, and the use of contraceptives. Now, I believe he's a Catholic, so he may have something to say on contraceptives, but do you have a constitutional right to a contraceptive? I don't think so, and I don't think it's been spelled out in our laws. So that's what I mean by that law may need to be ruled upon, but you can't just invent it out of thin air. Quote, in future cases, we should reconsider all the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, he wrote. Quote, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous, we have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. So he's just talking about going back and tightening up the law. You know, they may pass another law. You can pass a constitutional amendment for a right to gay marriage, but you have to do it through proper means, which they never do. The liberals never do. Now, next article is over here on Crosswalk. Trump celebrates Black History Month, honoring Frederick Douglass and Clarence Thomas, two of the greats. I just think this is funny because the liberals despise Clarence Thomas. They're very for Black History Month, but liberals have never once mentioned our greatest Black Supreme Court justice. They've never once mentioned his name during Black History Month. They despise Clarence Thomas, and Trump goes in and during Black History Month calls out Clarence Thomas. President Trump has recognized Black History Month with a proclamation celebrating the achievements of heroes of history like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, as well as the contributions of modern conservative voices such as Thomas Sowell and Clarence Thomas. We've quoted both Thomas Sowell and Clarence Thomas multiple times, the great economist Thomas Sowell. Black History Month is an occasion to celebrate the contributions of so many Black American patriots who have indelibly shaped our nation's history, the proclamation says. The annual event is celebrated each February. Pete Hegseth removed from the military all observances of DEI identity months. So Pride Month, it could include Black History Month. Quote, throughout our history, Black Americans have been among America's most consequential leaders, shaping the cultural and political diversity of our nation in profound ways, the proclamation says. America, heroes such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Thomas Sowell, Justice Clarence Thomas, and countless others represent what is best in America and her citizens. By the way, having very little to do with skin color. If you guys ever get a chance, man, read Clarence Thomas's biography called My Grandfather's Son. His grandfather raised him. Clarence Thomas, unlike many other people who are being preferred for their jobs, Clarence Thomas came from absolute dirt. Talks about being a kid, like this little 10-year-old kid just freezing to death at night, going out and having all day, having to dig oysters out of the mud to sell them as a job, had very bad schooling then. And then some relatives, his grandfather, took him under his wing. And my favorite quote of all time is his grandfather, when Clarence Thomas would say, I can't, his grandfather would say, old man Kant is dead. I know because I killed him. There's a ton of great quotes in that book. And the audiobook, by the way, is actually read by Clarence Thomas. So if you get a chance to buy My Grandfather's Son, Clarence Thomas will read it to you on audiobook. I can't think of a better recommendation. And on that happy note, we're celebrating Clarence Thomas. I hope he does reverse that gay marriage, really poorly decided one, not only because I oppose gay marriage, but just because it's made worse by having badly decided law, and the Supreme Court is likely going to take a look at that. Under Trump's watch, let's hope. I'm Doug, in exile.